On the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker. So God made a farmer.
Howdy folks, I'm Darren. Welcome to 8th Day Chronicles here at Cross Timbers Farm. Glad to have you with us on this beautiful day. Last day of January 2025. Where did 2024 go? We're already through January. Weather swings has been crazy around here. We're in the mid-upper 50s today. Unreal compared to the single digits and close to zero temperatures and wind chills in the minus teens we had a week and a half to 2 weeks ago. Unreal. Our ground is so soft here in our wooded, forested area that we're unable to haul any wood out of here unless it's a light load in the small trailer behind the ATV. And the reason we put a small load on that trailer is to keep the ATV from spinning and tearing up the soil, topsoil, where it is thawed and so soft right now. So we're spending our time in the woods here, sawing and bucking logs and sawing firewood and hand splitting firewood. And I have taken the advice of some folks who very kindly and respectfully told me, hey Darren, you need to be wearing more safety equipment running those chainsaws. And I agree. I got very slack about that, so I have gathered up all my safety equipment and I've committed to wearing my safety equipment while I'm cutting wood from now on. So, and thanks to the commenter that reminded me in a very polite, nice way that I needed to have safety equipment on. And so I've drug all my safety equipment out and knocked the dust off of it. And I'll wear it from now on. So let's get out here on this beautiful, beautiful day and get some of this firewood worked up. I don't know if you can see behind me in the skies. We're really smoky here today. In our neighboring counties, we have some wildfires going on. And we had some really high winds the last few days. And from my understanding, that high wind downed some power lines, and sparks off those power lines started some fires. And we have some wildfires burning. I hear that our fire departments and the Forest Service is doing a really good job containing those as best of their ability. And I hear they're doing a fantastic job. I can't praise our fire departments and our local volunteer fire departments enough. They're doing a fantastic job with these fires from my understanding, from some information I've gathered. 2 thumbs up to our fire departments. You guys are fantastic. All right, we've got the Stihl MS290, and I've done a little work on that chainsaw recently to give it a little bit more oomph, if you want to call it that. Be the first time running it since I've done some adjustments. We have our double bit axe and our splitting maul and a bunch of white oak wood. And if you watch splitting videos of a lot of folks just busting wood with an axe, just chopping it up, they're probably busting some kind of softwood, some pine of some sort. If you get into some really stringy, knotty white oak, it's a different ball game. Suddenly, well, we're going to demonstrate that in a few minutes. We've already got one big piece of white oak here that's about 25 inches in diameter up on the chop block. We got another one here that we need to split that came off the stump, and I wanted to cut that stump back as far as I could. So this log is a little too long to fit in most fireplaces or wood stoves. So I'm gonna have to cut a round off of it to get it down. And I cut it that way off the stump, knowing I'd have to cut it again for firewood. So I wanted to get that stump as short as possible so I could try a little bit later when the ground gets a little harder to pull that stump root ball back over here behind me. So it is a little long. I'm going to have to cut it one more time. So it'd be a good time to test the MS290 modifications that I made. And we'll get to splitting some of this wood. For a 57cc saw, it does really well. And it does have a full comp chain on it, a yellow chain, and an 18-inch bar. The weight of the saw is a little heavy for me. For what I would prefer for a 57cc saw. This saw's about 13 pounds or somewhere in that area. I'd have to look at the specs to be sure. 13 and a half, something like that. And that's just the power head. That's the way they weigh them. So the weight to power ratio is, you could get better power from a saw this weight in other saws, but this has been a very good saw. This has been a very reliable saw. Never fails to start, never fails to cut. It runs really good. Power to weight ratio for just cutting firewood. I think my next wood purchase will be an MS261C or CM. The power to weight ratio of those 261s are just phenomenal for firewood, and even failing in certain situations, you know, depending upon the size of your trees. But a 261 will run an 18-inch bar or a 20. I'd probably put a 20 on one. That may be my next saw purchase, would be a 261, just for firewood use. I think it'd be a hard saw to beat. The 290 is a good saw. I'm happy with it. All right, let's get to splitting some of this wood. We have a really big piece of white oak here. It's 21 inches in diameter. And this is a pretty straight piece of white oak. This one has very little knots that I can see from the outside. Sometimes when you bust into one, you'll find out, you'll start swinging away and you'll be like, man, why ain't this thing busting? And then when you do get it split open, you notice there's a knot inside that was not visible from the outside. But from all outward appearances, this piece of white oak appears like it should bust really easy. Really good. Probably doable with an axe. Excuse my crude protector here. This handle's in rough shape, and I just quickly stuck something on it to hold those fibers in place. It's just some tape. I'm gonna have to wrap it later or just replace this handle. Probably is what needs done. There is times when an axe, even a chopping axe, can split this wood no problem. However, sometimes looks are deceiving. You can have knots on the inside of this wood that this no longer becomes very viable, or you can have knots visible. And white oak is really stringy. The fibers in that wood are almost like intertwined, and when you try to split it, it just don't want to come really loose real good, and you'll see these slivers of wood coming off everywhere. White oak can be tough because of that stringiness, especially if you get a piece that the wood grain is going like this, the fibers curvy, which happens a lot here in the southeast. You get a piece of wood like that, and you can swing away with an axe. Contrary to popular belief, when you get a piece of wood like that, it's time to bring out the big gun. This 8-pound splitting maul, when you get into a knotty, gnarly wood grain like this, piece of wood, oak, and you see people splitting wood with boys' axes and felling axes and things, and I mean one strike, and I'm talking about a piece of wood this big. They hit it one time and it splits, one time and it splits. I don't know what kind of soft wood they're busting, some kind of easy busting pine or something. You get into a big piece like this, here you go. It's time to bring out the big gun. This tool will get the job done, especially if you use your brain and hit this wood in the right places to make it start splitting. Okay, let's take a look at this piece up close. It's already got a natural crack in it. Okay, you see the size of that wood. It's 21 inches in diameter. Since it's been cut, look here. It's already developing a crack along the heartwood. See it there? Prime place for this. And these little marks right here, that's just where I stuck the axe in there. It's where it was sticking in there while I was cutting some other wood. I wouldn't have, those are not marks to attempt to split it, so never mind those. That was just sticking the axe in there to hold it off the ground while I was doing other things. We got a natural split here. We got a crack trying to start right here. Okay. This piece, I do believe, is very possibly splittable with a double bit chopping axe. Let's give it a try. One thing about a chopping axe, a chopping axe will want to stick in the wood, which I do not like. And I've seen people sharpen splitting mauls, the edges to an axe-like sharpness. And this is personal preference. I don't like my splitting mauls sharp like I do an axe. I want my splitting maul with a good bevel, maintaining a really good bevel, but not like sharp like I do an axe. I want that splitting maul to have more of a, I don't want to use the term blunt, but a little bit more of a rounded edge for splitting power. All right, let's try. We're going to try this right along this crack and see what happens. Okay, it's going to bust. I can tell. I could tell by that sound. See how that axe stuck in that wood? Okay. right, it's cracked. Now I'm gonna come this way. Okay, that wood, that white oak fibers is holding that piece so tight, okay, that I'm gonna have to drive this axe handle down through that wood to start cutting those fibers. It's gonna tear my handle all to pieces. You can't, I've done the flick method 2 or 3 times here, and it's not giving up the ghost with those fibers. Okay. In comes the splitting maul. Now I realize this is already cracked from the axe, but watch this. And 2. I would still be swinging on with the axe. Okay, and this wood's got pretty nice straight fibers. And I see people a lot of times splitting firewood on the ground, and they're splitting maul or go devils, what I call it, or their axe blade digging in the dirt, and I cringe every time I see that. Okay, folks, we are back with the axe. Okay, right here we're going to use the flicking method. See how that just dives in, even with a flicking method. All right, let's go to this side. Okay. There was one small piece off of it with the axe. Okay. See that? Okay, we're going to set this axe down. We're going to pick up the splitting maul. Off. Okay, while that's in there, let me show you something. Here's the problem with wood like that. Folks, look at the fibers. See them? Right there's why the flick method and a splitting axe, or just a chopping axe, does not work that well with white oak, especially. I've got to drive that head down through those fibers. It's like that. If you're talking a splitting axe or a chopping axe with a wood handle, trying to go down through that, and you're going to have to. You're going to have to go down through that some to get those fibers, to let that piece of wood go. You're going to tear your handle all to pieces. The first reason I started going with fiberglass handles in all my splitting mauls. It's gotten so warm I took my long sleeve shirt off. The weather is just wild. 2 weeks ago, week and a half, something like that. I was down here with that 026 chainsaw testing it after I'd been working on it. And I was so bundled up, I looked like Randy off the Christmas Story. Y'all know, remember him, his mom wrapping him up so he couldn't even lower his arm. That's about the way I looked. I had on every insulated piece of clothes I could get on, and I still couldn't get warm. It was so cold down here that day. 10 to 15 degrees with 30-mile-an-hour winds, I was froze. I'm down here a week and a half to 2 weeks later in short sleeves. If you don't like the weather in the mountains, just wait a day or two. It'll change. Sometimes an hour or two. Okay, let's go back to this white oak. When you're dealing with wood like this stringy wood, I'm convinced this is the way to go. Okay, I have split some wood with a Fiskars X27 splitting axe. Okay, there's a big difference in a chopping axe or a felling axe and a splitting axe. Okay, let's look at this double bit chopping axe. Look how skinny the cheeks are on this axe. Look at that. That's unreal. Okay, excellent for chopping. Okay, it's lightweight. I'm not sure exact weight of this head, but I'd say this head's probably around 2 pounds. You can really get some speed with this, but for splitting wood, let's compare this to you've got a piece of cardboard over here, stood up with nothing behind it, and you rear back as hard as you can, you throw a ping pong ball at that cardboard, it's going to bounce off of it. You throw a baseball as hard as you can, or a fist-sized rock as hard as you can, it's going to travel slower because it's lighter. You couldn't get as much speed, but it's going to maintain that momentum. And when it hits that cardboard, it's going to go right through it and keep going. Versus that Go Devil or splitting maul. Okay, a splitting axe. A splitting axe is a combination of this and this. Okay, you'll get some of the design of a single bit axe with a little sharper point, but you're going to get those thicker cheeks like this, designed like wedge shaped to split that wood down into that wood better than this. Look how stringy that is. That's what will tear your axe handle all to pieces. And when you're dealing with a sharp, look at those fibers. When you're dealing with a sharp edge that's going to go down in there, look where it pulled them apart. Look at that. When you're dealing with a really sharp edge, it's just going to go. The flicking method don't really work that well here. In certain types of wood, it will. With this, I've been through too many axe handles. And I think one of my next wood purchases will be a Fiskars X27. I think they are a really good option for splitting wood in the right situation. When you got a stringy, tough piece of wood, nothing replaces, in my opinion. Every bit of this is opinion, so keep that in mind. Nothing replaces this to me. And speaking of splitting wood, technique, I see a lot of people doing the roundhouse and I'm just going to do one to demonstrate. The roundhouse swing, and I used to do that a lot when I was younger. Now that I'm getting older, that is murder on my shoulders. I have rotator cuff problems anyway. The roundhouse type swing is not as accurate, and man, as you get older, it's hard on your shoulders. You'll stay awake at night in bed with your shoulders aching and hurting. I prefer just the overhead swing. It doesn't hurt my shoulders near as bad, and I can get just about as much power. Use your knees. And I'm much more accurate with it directly overhead. And I'm going right through the heartwood on this one, and this is a tough. That axe right now, and this piece of wood would be doing no good. Man, is that stringy, and there is a knot right down in here. When this comes apart, I'm gonna show you this. Wow, I'm hitting the knot right now. Okay, you couldn't even see this from outside the wood. Now that we're in it, let me show you this. From outside this piece of wood, observing it from its natural state, you couldn't even see knots nowhere around this wood. But when I split into it, look. That's the piece of wood come off. Look in there. Look how stringy all that is. Okay, and that was with the 8-pound splitting maul, or go devils, what I call them. If you hear me refer to something as a go devil, I'm referring to a splitting maul. This right here, that axe would have been a lost cause. This required the big guns. And that's why I say, there's the king of the wood pile. Where the stringiness can be very deceiving. You'll see no knots all the way around it on the outside, but when you start splitting it, it's like you've hit a diamond in there, or the hardest substance known to man. Dad burn a knot inside of a white oak is close to the same. Let's pick back up our axe. I see people splitting wood a lot with an axe, and I wonder why. If you like doing the hip thing and don't mind going to bed wore out at night, then so be it. There was 3. There, it finally cracked. Okay, it's gonna crack. In order for me to knock the rest of that off there, look at that, hey, this will not give. Can you hear that? Wow, look at the stringiness in that. That's unreal. Okay, 4 or 5 strikes, I can't remember how many it was to split that piece. Okay, let's set the axe aside and let's pick back up our go devil. Same section of wood. We're just going to take a side off. Overhand swing method. One swing. And you can see the fibrous. Look at that. One swing. That's why I say the split Maul is king. Yeah, you got more momentum, more weight. It's like swinging. It's like throwing that ping pong ball versus a rock at that piece of cardboard. Two swings. And the only thing still holding it, that one needs split again. 2 or 3 swings with this versus 10 with the axe. And that axe will get stuck in that wood a lot. And the handle will go down in that white oak and not split it all the way. You have to pull that handle back out and hit it again, and it's tearing your wooden handle all to crap. And folks, use a chop block right here. Even if you're using a split Maul. Even if you're using a splitting Maul, don't drive your tool into the dirt. Have more respect for your tool. If you don't respect your tool, send it to me. I'll take it instead of it being abused. Wow, at the knots in this. I want you to see this again. Look at that. There is why this will burn for a long time in the stove. It's so dense. And try splitting this with an axe, with a chopping axe. You'll be here all day. Don't get sucked up in the hype of a splitting axe or a chopping axe for splitting duty. Use the appropriate tool. You ain't gonna try to bust up a slab of concrete with a carpenter's hammer. Look how, this is what I'm talking about with white oak. Look at all those fibers. That's why this stuff is death on an axe handle. Look at that. On a wooden handle. That's why I went with fiberglass handles. You can wrap them. You see my axe there, it's got some tape wrap on it. You can wrap them and wrap them. You can, the ones that's wrapped with a piece of steel around them, it's a lot better. But I'm convinced you can wrap them with leather, paracord, whatever, tape, hockey tape. It just is not going to last. Not when you're busting wood like this. Boy, that is some nice firewood. Goodness gracious, is that heavy. .22-inch block. Look how tight the grain is on that. Can you see that? Superior burning firewood. 84 years old. 84 growth rings. 22 inches in diameter. White oak. And right there's what a chopping axe will do. It'll just sink up in that wood and really is not even started splitting something this big. Let's get the splitting maul. I've already hit this block of wood right here 5 times with the double bit chopping axe, and it just sunk into it. No signs of it giving up the ghost. So let's go with the 8-pound splitting maul, and we're going right down the middle. I can already hear a difference in the sound this wood made with this hitting it. And I'm just doing the overhead swing method. That's best on my shoulders. It's about to split. There it went. And it's starting to sprinkle rain. And it's in 2. Just thanks for being with us, folks. I really appreciate it. It's starting to rain. We have to get this camera equipment in, get our woodworking equipment in. We're probably done for the day. Come back with us. We got a lot more to do. Thanks for being with us. I really appreciate it. I pray God blesses you and your family, and hope y'all have a fantastic day.